uncannily prescient through all this. The pollster extraordinaire with me now. So you're not in that camp that says, go early, go fast, Mitt advantage.
Well, he wants to go early, but he's got a bigger problem, and that, quite frankly, is Texas Governor Rick Perry. He cannot have these debates where Rick Perry is just all over him. Now, it does not make Perry look good, but it holds Romney back. And this constant brawl, quite frankly, could cost the Republicans their election in 2012. The American people don't like the yelling. They don't like the shouting.
It's still early, though, isn't it?
Yes, but we remember these things. Do you realize that more people...
Do you remember every slight?
More people... Yes, I actually...
See, I don't.
You can throw out
I remember
a year.
all slights. But you're saying, in other words, this will have some residual bad sticking value.
Because it's exactly what Republicans, independents, and many Democrats don't want, which are politicians yelling at each other.
Like this. Let's show that. I think this illustrates your point.
Great.
Mitt, you lose all of your standing from my perspective because you hired illegals in your home and you knew about it for a year. And the idea that you stand here before us and talk about that you're strong on immigration is on its face the height of hypocrisy.
Governor Romney?
Rick, I don't think I've ever hired an illegal in my life. And so I'm afraid, I'm looking forward to finding your facts on that, because that just doesn't...
I'll tell you what the facts are.
Rick, again...
You had the word...
I'm speaking.
I'm speaking. The newspaper...
I'm speaking.
It's time for you to tell the truth. It's time for you to tell the truth.
The way the rules work here is that I get 60 seconds.
Well, no, but the American people want the truth.
And then you get 30 seconds to respond, right?
And they want to hear you say that you knew
would you please wait?
Working.
Are you just going to keep talking? Or are you going to let me finish with what I have to say? Look, Rick...
I thought Republicans followed the rules.
This has been a tough couple of debates for Rick, and I understand that, and so you're going to get testy.
So as you can see there, illegals polls were not liking that exchange at all. I'm kidding. But the nastiness just didn't help, right?
Because they expect them to reach above that. They expect them to be presidential. There's nothing about that was presidential. And frankly...
What were they upset more with, that he was wounding the presumed front runner, or that both were engaged in a childish exchange?
It was the combination of the childish exchange and the way that it was done. And frankly, Rick Perry has got a great record as governor, and he's not talking about it by tearing down Mitt Romney. And if I were Mitt Romney's advisor, I would have said, just don't. You don't have to respond that way. If Rick Perry takes up your time and takes up your space, let it go. Why is it that Gingrich seems to be winning so many of these debates? Because he stays above it all. Why is Herman Cain in first place in many of these polls? Because he refuses to attack his opponents. And
why is Mitt Romney coming ahead debate after debate, largely unscathed? I say largely. They seem to be thinking that he's holding his own just fine.
And he's actually improving over time, and he's demonstrating that he's presidential. Mitt Romney is a stronger candidate today than he was 3 months ago.
Well, that's my point then. Who's to say that this aggressive give and take isn't going to take him to the White House?
Because you know that the Democrats are preparing ads, 30-second ads of all of these criticisms. And what they're going to say is, hey, don't take our word for it. Just ask the Republican governor of Texas. Just ask the Republican senator from Pennsylvania. Every time that somebody
LBJ during the 1960 race ripped JFK a lot, and then they were on the ticket together.
Yes, but 1960 was before CNN, that other network, and Fox. It was before all news.
So everything will be much more closely scrutinized.
And everything is on tape, and everything is videoed, and we're going to see it all, and we're already frustrated and divisive. And there's already
Well, what about Perry then and the tone? I know he's got a new ad out, and I don't want to show. We physically see it here, but do you get a sense that he's getting his political legs back, or what?
I get a sense that he's very strong-willed, and he's not going to give up, and he's not going to give in, and that Mitt Romney is going to get the run for his life.
But yeah, but don't you get a sense when candidates are in that position, they get desperate?
It's not that they get desperate. Again, Rick Perry, his ideology may be closer to the Republican primary voter than Mitt Romney's, but his tone is certainly not. And Romney's willingness to at least attempt to get above it all is exactly what voters want to see. And once again, I emphasize Herman Cain is at 27–28% specifically because Rick Perry and Mitt Romney are going at each other.
So he's not a flash in the pan.
I think Herman Cain is going to be winning in some states come the 1st of January. And I never thought that until now. And that's because voters, Republican voters, are saying, I want a positive vision. I want to look towards the future. I don't want this traditional politics. And Herman Cain has the personality that I'm looking for.
That's very interesting. Let me ask you a little bit about, back to the Steve Wynn thing, because you had a focus group listening to a lot of Steve Wynn's comments and what his message was.
He's the most.
They liked it.
They loved it. And he was dialing in the 80s and 90s. You saw those reactions when the dials came down. Steve Wynn is more popular than any Republican candidate. I said to him, why don't you run for office? And he laughed at me. I think his comment was, well, only if I could take one of my pillows to the White House.
Right.
And
people don't know that his actual home is substantially larger than the White House, which is an interesting point. But it's interesting that he does hit a chord with people.
He hits a chord with people because, number one, he's beautifully articulate. He was an English major at the University of Pennsylvania, and you hear it in what he says. Number two, his voice is so melodic.
Oh, my God.
There are 3 great voices in my lifetime: Richard Burton, Orson Welles, and Steve Wynn.
I'd add Barry White.
And
no, because it was so, I think it has so much more punch because it's so deep and in your face.
And number 3 is that he's saying how everybody feels. He doesn't pull a punch. All these politicians try to measure what they say. Steve Wynn says what he means and means what he says, and people appreciate it. And lastly, he loves his employees. And how many CEOs can you say that about? That they truly love the people who work with them, not for them.
Right.
And he is loyal to them. And that's why he gets so agitated when he sees what's happening in Washington.
And by the way, they love him.
And that's because he's given them better benefits. He's given them better
You know, when
wages.
the union was up short on the health benefits, he gave the union $2 million.
Because to him, there are things more important than politics. He puts people first. You hear the slogan. Steve Wynn actually does it.
All right. The brilliant Frank Luntz. You know, he was on a lot of these trends before anyone knew what he was talking about. Frank Luntz.